I wanted to take a minute to talk about the patterns that I am using. In the first jacket that I made, I assembled all of these different patterns by using different patterns that I really liked and then connecting them all together. That's a lot to ask people to do if you are not as familiar with Creative Studio. So I went looking for some patterns that I think would make this a lot easier. Okay, so Sweet Dreams Quilt Studio has a variety of these patterns called Dream Tangle. And there are 3 different sets. There's a Christmas set, there's the first original set, and then a second set that she added maybe within the last year or 2. And the beauty of these patterns is that you get that variety in patterns without having to do all of that connecting yourself. So let me open this up here on the screen. Let me zoom out. So you can see there is a collection of patterns all put together to make an edge-to-edge pattern. And of course, we all love edge-to-edge because that means everything is already connected. Okay, so let me see if I can show you how this works. Here, I have my sleeve pattern. And right now, it is still a pattern because you can see it in yellow, and I can pick it up and move it. So if I come over here and I pick up my Dream Tangle pattern, I can put this Dream Tangle pattern right where I want it. I can zoom it to fill the space like I want it to fill, just like that. I'm not going to get too carried away with what is where in this pattern. But once I can see that it is covering my sleeve exactly the way I want, I'm going to come back here and I am going to select that sleeve pattern and I am going to say convert pattern to boundary. Now I can select this pattern that I just put in place and I can use fill inside. I'm going to do fill inside. That is going to fill everything inside that sleeve area, and I don't have to do any of the work to do that. It does not matter with this that there's going to be overstitching on the outside edge because that outside edge is your cut line. That's where you're going to cut this pattern apart and then sew it together when you get it to your domestic machine. So it's okay that there's overstitching. You don't have to try to correct that or change it. It's fine. Some of it is going to get cut off and the rest of it is going to get sewn in the seam allowance. Okay, so now that I have my fill complete, I'm going to select my boundary, which is basically my sleeve outline. And now I'm going to go convert boundary to pattern. It's going to convert that boundary back into a pattern. Press F4, and I'm going to set the sew order to stitch my pattern piece first. So that's going to be my little outline. And then I want to stitch the detail on the inside. And then I will press F4 to accept those changes. And now I am ready to stitch. Okay, so you can see that it stitched out this first outline, and this is the actual pattern piece that we traced. It stitched that first, and the reason why I think it's important to trace this is so that when we take this off the frame, we know that this right here, this solid line, that is our cut line. When we get ready to cut this out, when we take it off the frame, we're going to take our scissors or rotary cutter or whatever, and we're going to cut this out. And we know that that solid line, that is exactly where we need to cut. Now that that is stitched, it's going to start into the detail of the quilting. I want to talk about a couple things. Number one, I wanted a high contrast design. High contrast for me is using this dark fabric and then using a contrasting thread. So I'm using solid black fabric and I am using a very brightly colored thread. This is a teal or like an aqua color. And again, I have the teal for the backing, so this is all going to come together very nicely. And if we take a quick peek at the one that I've already stitched here, you'll see that thread really stands out. And the reason why that thread stands out so much is the fact that I'm using 2 threads. People ask about this all the time, so I'll just tell you how I do it. I have an additional spool holder back there that I have my second spool sitting on, and then I thread the machine just like it is one thread. So I gather up both of those thread tails, and I go through each and every one of these thread guides with 2 threads. Now, everybody's machine is different. I have my machine set. I do not have to make any adjustments to my tension when I'm running this dual threads. I have never had a problem doing this, but everybody's machine is different. So I would tell you, before you start using 2 threads, try a sample and make sure your tension settings are where they need to be. So if you find that your tension is too tight, instead of going through 3 thread guides here, just go through 2. It'll be fine. I'm using a size 19 needle, and as you can see, both threads go through that needle just fine. I don't have any problems at all. It works great. If you have problems getting both strands of thread through the eye of the needle at the same time, try a floss threader. These are sold in the dental aisle, or you can order them on Amazon. You put both of your threads through this eye, and then this right here will fit right through the eye of the needle, essentially pulling all your threads through the needle at the same time. It makes dual threading very easy. This little thing here, this is where I store my floss threaders. I use them often enough to thread my machine. I don't know what this thing is, but I use it to hold my floss threaders. Those are my settings and my adjustments. I have 2 threads threaded at once. I have a size 19 needle with both of my threads going through the needle at the same time. I am using a stitches per inch of 10, and I have my machine slowed down to an 8. Now, as my machine starts stitching, as you can see, this is going to be a very dense design. That's a lot of thread work there, a lot. So, it's going to take a considerable amount of time to stitch. Because I am using a large stitch length. A 10 is a large stitch length. And let me tell you why I'm using a size 10. The whole idea behind using 2 threads is to make this thread stand out. So I want those stitches to be big so they are visible. Now, the caveat to that is that when you are using a larger stitch length, you might sacrifice a little bit of detail in things like small circles. It is a choice that you have to make. To me, it was more important for me to have the thread stand out more with the large stitching. And these are still very detailed designs, and I'm okay with that. You have to make your own sample. Try your stitches at, a size 10 stitches per inch and a 12 stitches per inch, and see which one you like better. I like the look of the 10. Personally. And again, I'll say that this is an awful lot of detail to stitch in. That is why I am stitching with a speed of 8. Yes, I know it is slow, but it really helps. Everything will look much, much nicer using a slower speed and a bigger stitch length. So that's that. I'm going to hit the go button. I'm going to let this piece stitch out, and when it's all done, I'll come back. I really like the way that it turned out. So as you can see here, right along the edge, you can see where we have the outline stitching. And of course, I used fill inside with this pattern. So you can see as it came to the edges of some of this, there's a little bit of back stitching. I'm not worried about any of this, of the fill lines along the edge, because all of this is the cut line. This is where the pieces are going to get sewed together later. So these fill lines on the side, they don't matter. I really love this contrast of the teal thread on the black fabric. But I also wanted to say that you do not have to use 2 threads to do this. You can use a single thread of your choice. This is just the look that I wanted. So when you're making your own, if you only want to use 1 thread, just use 1 thread. It's fine.